Good evening. Welcome to the St. Peter Community Center Governor's Room. Thursday, June 22nd, 2023, 6:31 p.m. We will call the meeting of the St. Peter School Board to order. If you are here and interested in speaking, please get your name on a card and get it to Sarah. And we'll take those later on in the agenda. First of all, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we need to consider and adopt the agenda that is before you in the board book or paper copy.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is adopted. Sarah, any requests to speak?
Nope.
Thank you. Next up, approval of consent agenda items. Again, in the board book packet and in a sizable paper packet.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just in general, without pointing any particular people out, I just see, many teachers that are resigning and just wish them all luck. I mean, some of them that have been there for quite a while, and I'm not gonna say all the specific names because I'll forget somebody, but I see a lot of people that have been there for a long time, so I wish them all luck on their future endeavors.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just want to call out two graduates that didn't walk across the stage and hear their name. One is Ben Kennedy, who wrapped up his credits for graduation during summer school, so congratulations to him for sticking with that and finishing strong. And the second one is Javier Martinez, who was a former student at St. Peter Public Schools and stopped attending and then came back and finished 7 credits through adult basic education. So really worked hard to do that. So thanks to Tammy and her team for supporting him as well. But congratulations, that is a lot of work.
Yeah, good job, Ben and Javier.
Absolutely.
And then I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Megan Gracia, who has accepted the position of business manager and started with us last week. Wave, Megan. Megan comes to us from MVED, where she was business manager for 7 years. Did I get that right? And had a finance background before that, and in the very beginning had experience as a first grade teacher. So welcome, Megan, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Welcome, Megan. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Time for our student spotlight. Leah.
Not gonna lie, I'm a little anxious.
We're nice.
They're an easy crowd, Leah.
We are so,
We're excited to
you're
hear from you.
Yeah.
So I brought Leah Zarn with me today from Rock Bend, and she is a rising senior. And I first met Leah last year in summer school when she was attending, and she wasn't sure what her plans were for this upcoming year. And she was admittedly behind in credits, and so when we got to talking about what might be a good fit, I recruited her hard to Rock Bend, and she has been a really wonderful fit. So Leah, why don't you start by telling us who is with you today in the crowd?
My dad, Scott, my mom, Jen, and then my really, really good friend, Jerica.
Yes, so a good support team behind Leah. So I'm just going to ask you a couple questions, and I wrote them down, so if you're anxious, you can look.
It's okay.
So what are some things that you like about school? What are your favorite classes and subjects?
Well, I'm surprised by this. I used to hate math with a passion. When I tell you I would fight not to do math, but my teacher, Miss Niemeyer, she has made it so easy. She's understanding. She actually goes forth and explains the steps to me, and I just began to love it.
oh,
Awesome.
All right, so how would you describe Rock Bend? Because not a lot of people know a lot about our school, so.
It's very nice because it's pretty lenient towards making credits versus like, well, with online or like in class and stuff, you can do extra credit assignments and stuff like that, and I really appreciate that. And it's a no homework school, so you don't have to take homework home, which is also a plus, so I'm not staying up till 3 a.m. doing homework, so
Well, and that's
That's
because
nice.
Leah has had really good attendance too.
that too.
Yes. Mhm. Yes. So, are you doing anything fun this summer?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go up to DL to visit my bio family because I'm adopted. Shout out to my mom and dad for that. Very lovely home, and I appreciate it a lot. So I'm gonna go visit my birth mom and my sisters and my stepdad, and we're gonna go fishing and just have a blast at the lake.
Awesome. So, what are your goals for your senior year?
Just to graduate on time, honestly. That's just the number one thing. I have to graduate on time. I've come this far. I'm not gonna go right back down to where I used to be. I just want to stay on track.
Are you willing to brag a little and talk about the work you put in this year to do that?
Sure. How many credits? I think it was 13, right? I started with 13 credits when I attended Rock Bend because I had some depression episodes in 9th grade, and now I'm at 20, so I'm like caught up, and I'm very proud of myself.
Wow.
I never thought I'd be here, so
Yeah.
thank
She's
you
doing
for that.
awesome. She's doing awesome. And then what do you want to do after high school?
I'm considering college. I do want to take 1 year really to just pick out a college. As of right now, I'm thinking South Central because it's a little bit cheaper than MSU and it has the right programs that I would like and need to succeed. So,
And Leah did really well in the work skills competition at South Central College this year. So if you decide to take that year off, I think that they said you were very employable.
yeah, almost every one of them said they'd hire me, which
Yes. Yeah.
that kind of shocked me, but you know.
Didn't shock me. So are you willing to answer some of the questions if they have some questions?
Yeah, go for it.
So you said something about having the classes that you'd like to, what are you gonna do? What's your dream?
I want to be a vet technician.
Oh.
I would love to be a marine biologist, but it's just not realistic. I would not be able to be away from family all the time. So if I'm a vet tech, I could work in Mankato or like somewhere closer, like maybe even Minneapolis, somewhere like that. So
Excellent.
I feel like that's just a lot more doable.
Yeah, good idea.
I have a couple things to share with you. Number one, I appreciate you being so open and honest about you talking about with your depression, because I'm with you, sister, on that, and people won't believe me, but
It's
I
been a
hear
work
you.
in
And that
progress.
is hard, and for you to overcome it like that, that's amazing. Okay, so that's a great story for you to share with others. And the other thing is, you say you're in a homework school, but I bet you have to have pretty, I don't know, I'm not just asking this question, but I'm betting if you don't actually show up, then you probably are a homework school, right? I mean, if you have to actually show up, so.
Technically, no, you don't do it at home.
You
So
s-
on Wednesdays, we have this, would you call it a program?
We call it Power Hour.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So on Wednesdays, it's a half day. So if you have all your work done, you get the reward of going home. But if you don't, you have to stay. And you have until the end of that school day to do work. And if you're actually working and you're trying really hard and you have like maybe, let's say, 1 or 2 assignments left, the teachers might make an exception since you were putting forth the effort. Otherwise, you just get an F and it is what it is.
And that Wednesday Power Hour is a time that Leah also used because she was caught up in classes to do extra work online, which is how she got additional credits. So that Wednesday Power Hour is kind of like what you need time. So if it's catch-up time, it's catch-up time. If it's getting ahead in credits, it's that too.
Yeah.
So
Just sound like the reason that, like, you probably just fill out Mrs. Sikora's cup just because you just are
She
that
does.
person that,
Yeah.
you're
Absolutely.
awesome.
for sure.
Thank you.
Wasn't so scary, was it?
No. A little bit, but no.
All right, well, thanks for coming.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You have a lot to be proud of, Leah.
Thank you.
I love the student spotlights. All right, moving on to action items. First thing up is considering the approval of candidates for graduation. I don't know who's speaking tonight.
I guess I am.
Awesome.
There you go.
This is the list of graduates that were recognized during our regular graduation, and we congratulate them, and this is the last official step of accepting them as graduation candidates. I'm not going to read all the names.
Fantastic. So, we
I'll
have the
make-
list in front of us.
I'll make a motion to accept the list that's presented in front of us for graduation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The list is approved. Congratulations to all the 2023 graduates. Feels official now.
It is.
Quite official. Number 2, consider the approval of a student resource officer agreement with the City of St. Peter.
Yes, this is a continuation of our agreement with the city to provide an SRO. 2 years ago, we went through quite a process to redefine the role of SROs in our district and redefine our agreement with the city on what the SRO program looks like. I have to say that Officer John Hughes is, I'd say he's the poster child for SRO programs. He works very hard to build relationships with our students. He knows our families well. He works with our staff to really be proactive with students and help them to make really good choices into the future. I think that Chief Groko has also been a great addition to the police department, has a great vision for SROs and for really the community police model, which SROs fit into really well. So we really do support continuing our agreement to provide an SRO for St. Peter's schools, and are happy to have Officer Hughes continuing. Remember, we did have a 2 SRO model, but just with circumstances the way that they were, there were times we had 2, times we had 1. It seemed to be working with Officer Hughes, and he feels like he can handle the workload alone. So we went ahead and included that with our budget adjustments this year, going to 1 SRO. And that is the agreement that is before you.
And the agreement is about the division of cost, or the cost incurred by the school to the city to help pay the wages, all that stuff for the officer.
Correct.
Yep.
And there's no substantial changes to the position description?
No,
according to
at
what I
all.
saw.
Just going from 2 to 1.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. I move that we approve the student resource officer agreement with the City of St. Peter.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just real quick, like during the summer at all, is there still, if there is any like, I don't know, I'm thinking more like along the lines of like, what do I want to say? I want to say drinking violations, because that's the only thing I can think of. But like, is there still like those kind of communications with the SRO, or is that just, how does that work in the summertime?
We actually just had a meeting, our police meeting in June. We typically don't have one in July. We come back together in August. But I think I've talked to Chief Groko 3 or 4 times this week.
Okay.
That we
So you
definitely stay
definitely still
connected.
connected.
Yep. And we are aware when things happen.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second to approve the student resource officer agreement with the City of St. Peter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion passes, and the agreement, student resource officer agreement with the City of St. Peter has been approved. Thank you. Item number 3, consider approval of individual contracts. We have 16 of them.
We do. There are 16. There is one more to be completed. That employee is out of the country for about a month, so we will do that when she comes back. I have met with each of these people and worked through the details of their contract, met with Director Lokensgaard and presented to the HR committee as well, and they are before you for approval of the 2-year contracts.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the 23, or the approval of the individual contracts for the next 2 years.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And these are all approved as a lump of all 16. So we,
I did want to note that Director Kaut did a great job of working through the contracts and found some typographical and grammatical errors that we'll be fixing that have no changes, and have some ideas for future contract language as well.
so we have a motion and a second. Proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All 16 individual contracts have been approved. Thank you. Item number 4, consider approval of the 2023-2024 budget. Tim and Megan.
I guess I'll probably take the lead on this since Megan's only been here a week. She's picked up a lot.
Plenty of
but,
time.
Yeah. We went over it very thoroughly at the business committee meeting last week, so I'll try and be a lot briefer than we were that night, because I think Tim and Tracy were there. But if there's some things that you have questions on, make sure you let me know. Basically, there should be in the packet a few pages. I think other years I kind of went to the cover sheet, which is page 2, and maybe we'll start with that and just kind of go over the high points of all the budgets except for Fund 1 and then, or all the funds besides that, and then we'll spend a little more time on that. So if you want to go to what basically says adopted budget 23-24, and it's got all the funds listed there. What I'd like to do is to start maybe on the bottom, line 77. Basically line 74, if you're all there, through 77, is a new fund we added last year. If you remember, we went to the self-insurance, so we needed to separate out both the health and the dental. Basically, last year we had a decent year. Our revenues were over, and the revenues, remember, we kind of pay ourselves, and the expenses are the claims for the health. And we had about a $400,000 excess of revenues over claims in 22. We projected a couple $100,000 over in 23, and now this is 24. I guess I want to back up one item. Column C is the projected fund balance at the end of FY 23, which is this year. Then that'll happen on June 30th. And so, those are projections, so it's kind of projections on projections, if that makes sense. So we're projecting to end the year with those balances, and then columns D and E are the revenues and expenses for FY 24. One of the main, we need to approve the budget, but the other main reason it's here in June is in order to spend any money after July 1st, school districts have to approve the budget for the coming year, and every district in the state is doing it in the next week or two, or has already done it. So with that background, we're projecting about a $200,000 excess of revenues over expenses for the health insurance, and we also have self-insurance dental, and we've typically had $15,000 to $30,000 of excess revenues in there, and it tries to kind of build up the fund balance for the year you're going to get with health insurance when the claims will exceed the revenue. We've been I guess when we went into this, they said 4 to 5 years, 3 to 4 years you'll be ahead in that 1 year. And that's why we want to try and build up the fund balance to $800,000 to $1 million to absorb that in those years. So in 2022 was obviously pretty good. 23, unless we have a terrible next 10 days, should be okay. So, Megan will tie out the numbers when we finish. So the trust fund, line 72, is basically just our 2 scholarship funds, annexed and Mauer. Interest comes in, we pay out the scholarships, it basically stays even there. Line 67 is a debt redemption fund, starting the year projected with about a $670,000 balance. The revenues is basically comes in the tax levy, and then the expenses is the payment on the current bond. Just one thing I'll note, we do not have anything on, I don't have anything on here, it's in the audit and all the papers, but to try and lack of confusion, remember in February when we did you guys did the refunding, you know, we have $48 million invested in savings, and we also have another loan or bonds that we sold. For the next 2 years, the interest off of the investment will pay the payment on that bond, because the bond that was sold in 2015 was not able to be paid off or not callable until, I think it's 2 more years has to go. So that one will just kind of take care of itself to that time, at which time that money will come out of the savings account, pay off the 2015 bond, which has higher interest rates, and then the bond, the money that was borrowed in February. And then if you go back, remember we had that one drop in rates when the Ukraine war started, and that's when we got in. So that was, you know, now they're probably 2-3% higher. So it's going to look like a good deal unless something really changes in the course of things. Right now it's looking like a real good move at that time. So that's not on here. I'm just trying to keep it confusion. This is the original bond. Basically, levy comes in, payment goes out. Lines 58 through 63 are basically the community service fund. Basically, there's 3 or 4 different components to that. Line 59, which is more the community the education activities. Line 60, the ECFE programming, and line 61, the school readiness programming. You know, again, this is the fund that's been, you know, the expenses have exceeded the revenues the last couple of years since COVID came about. Before that, it was running okay. School readiness has typically always ran a negative. The negative got bigger. Before that, the community ed portion was positive enough that it covered up some of that. And this one is, you know, it's running a negative. It's the same as it's done the last couple of years we talked about. I think, especially 59, the community education one will come in a little bit better than that. But, you know, we try to be a little bit conservative. So, but that one probably needs to be looked at in the next short while. Line number 55, the food service fund 02. That's been the shining star probably in FY22. We had free meals for breakfast and lunch. We had a really big fund balance going into FY23 or this year. We actually need to try and spend that down. That 897 is, after spending down, projected a couple $100,000. Currently remodeling the kitchen at the middle school, and a couple other things, and that's part of the reason also we switched from Avian's back to self-ops to increase probably the quality of the food because we had the funding. We're over the actual amount, or we're at the end of 22 that we could have in there because it's federal funds and they only let you have such a big fund balance and you have to spend it, and they're limited on that. So it's been good. I expect it probably to drop a little bit in 23 depending upon when the project gets done, the remodeling. 24, I know I have a little bit of deficit there. It's really hard to project for the coming years because of the change in going to self-ops in 23. But next year, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, it's going back to free meals, as we all know. So we're gonna serve A lot more meals, both breakfasts and lunch, and B, we're gonna get paid for them all. So it should be a good year in 24. Then go up to lines, above line 51, the items are all in the general fund. We do split out lines 45 through 48, basically into what we call Fund 05 for kind of accounting purposes. The state looks at it as Fund 01. There's really 2 different components in it. Line 46 is the restricted for deferred maintenance, or LTFM. That came out about a few years ago, and we did the roof, and we were negative for a while. You'll see more on this next month. You'll have to approve the 10-year LTF plan every year. This is kind of projection of where it is, and typically it looks like we're spending a little bit more money. You know, I was on the plan from last year, and it'll be updated again in July for the coming years. You know, it's a thing where you can spend ahead or save up the balance. If you remember, some of that have been on the board for a number of years, the first year it came out, we did the roof at the middle school. We were probably about I don't know if we're $1 million in, you know, negative, but we were close. At the end of '22, we were under 100,000. We had projected to be a little bit higher, but some of the projects got moved back. So in '23, we'll project the deficit will go up, and then you just have to try and work it, you know, with the numbers going forward. We get about $900,000 in revenue. It's about $380 a student, and then just depending on the expenses. The other portion of 05 that we have is basically operating capital, line 47. We have a balance in there of about $400,000 to start the year. That's basically a certain amount of money per kid that we get that has to go for capital, capital items. You know, it used to be books, now it's more online things or you know, capital physical items, and there's a list of things you can spend that on. Curriculum is one of the big ones there. You know, probably 4 or 5 years ago, we did the 2 curriculums in 1 year, so we try and keep a fund balance for when that cycle comes up. Then if we go up above that, there's a few within the general fund. We have a lot of assigned funds or restricted funds that are for, you have to spend them for certain things, the state tells us. The assigned funds are money we assigned. The restricted funds are more, the state says this is money for these certain things. Lines 35 through 36 are basically 3 assigned funds that we have. 35 is a while back when the new school was built, we set up assigned the fund to water mitigation. For those of you who've been out to the high school, you see all that work going on the west side. This is how we're gonna help pay for our portion of it. And I believe, Bill, it's enough that should do our portion. And then, so that's what we had originally set aside for. Assign the AAA money, that's money that people have donated to the Arts Athletic, and we do various things throughout the year with it. I think that really the school budget can't fund that are good items. I think we bought a piano last year and the trailer for the trade school so they can store on site when they build the Habitat house, you know, some good items like that. Line 37, assigned for funded depreciation is some money we assigned a few years back to knowing that the new school, when the high school was built, we put a lot of stuff in there, you know, whether it's boards, computers, monitors, and that stuff really it wears out. So we tried to assign some money so when that starts to wear out, we have a savings account to pay for it because we really didn't have there's no other place really to get it from. So I think we started this year, we had a couple monitors we started to replace, but that's what that one's basically for. If you go up to lines 30 and 31, 30 is assigned for severance. Basically that's there in case you have a lot of people retire that have vacation or other severance type things built into their contracts, and that would help pay for that. That honestly started at the same amount when I started here, and we've always just tried to fund that if we've had those through the general fund. So that one can go up or down, but we've chose to kind of keep it the same. Line 31 is assigned for the Viva Trust. That has to do with the teacher's retirement plan that switched about 12, 13 years ago. Instead of having a lump sum when they retire, and this, for those who've been around on the levy, now I think it's $1,200 a year for the first 10 years, and then they get, the teachers that stay the 10 years, they get a payment into the Aviva account for their retirement, and then they get $1,000, I think, a year after that. If they leave before the 10 years, Some of that is forfeited, or that's forfeited back into the fund, so the fund goes up or down depending upon. Eventually, when all the teachers that were hired before 2008 or 9, I think it is, when they're all retired, this will be, it'll be, if you have 100 teachers, and we have more than that, at $1,200, it'll be $120,000 a year going in. So it's kind of, it's a trade-off with the levy and the OPEB and those items. So, lines 24 through 27 are basically the student activity accounts. We have one at each school. It's basically student-raised money spent for student events or student activities. So the students raise it, the students spend it on themselves. A couple years ago, it was in the general unassigned funds, and a lot of schools kind of use that money, and it's really the students' money. So now we have to separate it out, and we've always kind of kept it separate. We're on that, but basically, hopefully they spend the same amount that they raise. So. The next ones up there are more restricted accounts, the lines 14 through 22. They're, scholarships. We have some other scholarship funds besides the ones in Fund 7 that don't have a specific agreement on, but they go for that, and we need to separate that out. Some bigger ones, medical assistance, that's money that's raised through billing Medicare, Medicaid, I think, and it only can be spent on certain things. Back in 22, we didn't have enough certain things that we spent them on, so we can carry that over until we do. Non-spendables is just prepaid items, accounting things. Line 12, the concession fund. The concession fund is part of Fund 01. We separated it out. We have had a negative, with COVID and some of those things, and there's a couple things that we need to probably look at, or you'll need to look at in the coming years to just tweak that a little bit. And that takes us up basically to the biggest one, line 10, which is the general unassigned fund, which is the one we talk about considerably. That's the money in 01 you can spend on any item. Basically it's unassigned, so you can go where it is. Along with that, over the years, we've always done a rollout kind of, and that's the next 4 pages. And basically that is FY23 is back in April. We passed the revised budget for 23. That was what we passed. That's the starting point for 24. And what we kind of do in 24 then is we bring over the fund balance and the projected revenues and expenses, and we put in what the major changes are. I'll highlight a couple of the major changes. I won't go through all the items, but if you have questions, let me know. If you go to the second page, FY24, line 455 is our estimated fund balance starting the year. 456 is our estimated revenues from 23, the year we're going to close. And the other item that's a brought over number is 481, which is our estimated expenditures. If you look at lines 458 and 481, the expenses are more than the revenues. And we've talked about that with the cuts and everything for 23. A few good things happened for the school's budget from the state. Basically, the two biggest items were the formula increase of 4%, which gives us an additional about $626,000, and then the increase in special ed funds, and this is a combination of a different thing down on line 463. We've talked at length kind of about the special ed cross subsidy, but they increased that from, I think it was 6.43 or something, up to 44%. We were running close to a couple $1 million in cross subsidy amount, so we're going to get an extra $900 to $100 million in that. Plus our special ed expenses have went up over the years, and that kind of, it takes you a year kind of to catch up on that. So we're going to get a lot of additional funding from those two items. The third item that was really big for us as far as additional revenue was a change in the compensatory revenue, which has to go back with the free meals. We had the free meals in 22. This year we didn't, so we had a lot more people filled out the forms, plus they changed the way we can get the information from the county and the people that qualified for there. So in a nutshell, we're going from about 700,000 in compensatory in FY '23 to about 1.6 million or $900,000 increase in FY '24. So those were the big additions to revenue. They are pretty much hopefully constant things. The formula is there. The cross subsidy will stay at that percent for I think 2 or 3 years, and then it goes up to 50. If I've got that wrong, and somebody else. And then the compensatory, that one, they were worried about that dropping back down again with the free, but they've kept, for 25, they're gonna keep it at the same percentage, and then they're gonna try and change the formula of how that's calculated. So at least that's my understanding of it, so you won't, we dropped down $500,000-600,000 from 21 to 23 because of that, and now we're back above. The big takeaways from revenue is we had a lot of COVID funds in '23 that will not be there. We have a little bit left, some summer school stuff that was a specific funding that we didn't have the expenses for before. Is really the big takeaway. In the expenditures, they're actually down if you look at that. Couple reasons, obviously, is the adjustments that were done. They're on lines 487 through 489, 490, the 1.1. They total about 1.5 million. We did build in there, and we didn't have that before, on lines 482 and 483. The first one is an estimated increase with the 7% insurance increase, and then just another expenditure increase for, the salary increases, some inflationary stuff, and that, we estimated a number with Bill. The bottom line, kinda, after everything's in and out, 24 looks okay. I mean, if you go into the middle there at 479 and lines 479 and 480, our projected revenue over expenditures is going to be up a little bit. One line I did miss that I want to point out, line 460, is the enrollment. Our estimated enrollment for next year is projected to go down, and that's based upon basically two things. We just roll ahead the classes. We put in like 132 for the kindergarten class, which was based upon the enrollment study, and the graduating class is bigger. So we have a natural loss there, and when you lose that, we lose some other formula because the funding is based upon per student. So that'll show up next year a little bit more. So kind of in a summary real quick, 2024 probably looks okay because we got those extra items. If you want to flip, then I'll go back to the page before. Those are the summary page we went over. Those are the numbers in the revenue and expenditures, and the fund balance will go up a little bit. And again, there's two things that'll really change that, or have the thing to change that, is how does the budget end for 23, and how does the then in 24, what's the actual enrollment look like come October 1st when everybody's somewhat settled down from ins and outs and moving. So at that point, you probably got to look at this and revise it again, depending upon what those items were, what they came in at, the actuals. If you flip ahead to FY '25, and I'll kind of just summarize FY '25 and '26 in the same manner. If you look at 531 and 532, and again, the projection looks a lot better than it did 3 months ago because of the funding from the state. But if our enrollment continues to decrease, and that really matters what's coming in on the kindergarten, and we don't get an influx of students in the other grades, we're going to drop enrollment because of the graduating classes being bigger. It's kind of the opposite effect of, it's been happening for about 3 or 4 years, and for those who've been on the board before that, we had smaller graduating classes and we had the larger classes coming in. Right now our largest classes are 9 through 12, or 8 through 12 next year. And the smallest classes are the ones coming in. So depending upon how the budget ends up in '23 and where the enrollment comes in October, November, it was probably not the last round of budget cuts, if, depending on where the numbers come in, if the enrollment stays down. And it's probably an enrollment-based thing. And if you look at the numbers there, we had talked, Bill had talked about putting in, budget cuts, but we left them out, or budget adjustments. And if you look, the fund balance does drop in '25 and in '26, and that's projecting 125 kindergartners coming in, which hopefully the enrollment projection was low. So, good news is '24 looks good, may have to look at '25 and '26. Goes. So, Megan, I talked a lot there, and I'll open up for questions afterwards, but it's a lot of numbers. This was probably, and Bill, I know you're really connected up with legislature. Our lobbyist said that this was by far the most stuff that came out in her 26 years of working up there. And there's probably some stuff that we don't have built in there because, it came out the end of May. And it's and there's some other things that might be good. There might be some things that are gonna sneak up and you're gonna have to fund. But hopefully we got the big points in here.
I will say some of the new things that were added in the legislature don't get implemented for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and so we have some time to plan for that because we don't even know all the things yet. So.
Right. I maybe just want to touch on one or two of those. The unemployment was a big thing that was passed, the summer employment. We do have a number in there in '24 on the revenue and expenditures. I think I put 180,000 in on both sides. The legislature did put a pool of money in there to fund the unemployment, I could call it the summer unemployment cost for a couple years. And I guess they're hoping it's a couple years. They don't really know how many people are gonna apply. And basically that's what they said. And the summer unemployment is different than our other unemployment. When somebody, the position gets cut or whatever, that money ends up on the levy. This money, as of now, ends up coming out of the general fund, and that's why they're funding it. The other big thing that's going to be, and I think it's 2026, 27, somewhere in there that starts, is you heard about the Family Leave Act, which is basically going to be a additional tax, and it's split half and half between the employer and the employee. As of now, it's 0.3%, so about 0.35% to us. Based upon our current payroll, it's gonna be $65,000 to $70,000 that we will have to pay out, the school will have to pay in addition. And again, I think that number is right now just an estimate. I kind of run the numbers in the back of my head, and I don't know how, if we put in 65,000 or 70,000 as a school district, the employees put in 65, 70,000, that's 140. It's a 20-week payout. I'm not sure that is going to cover if you have a couple of people on medical leave or birth. I don't know that will be enough. That's just to be determined. I'm not privy to the numbers, but it just seems that it's not a big pool. If I'm fair to calculate that. So those are the other two things that 25, 26 that you'll need to look at.
Not a big deal for tonight, but on your worksheet for your students, just check over lines 29 and 30. I just happen to catch it just because it's the grade that my kid's in. But it's just a number that didn't carry through. It's not like it's gonna break the whole thing, but it's just the number didn't carry through correct for the, so if you look at line 28 for the preliminary for those 9th graders.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's, we add a few kids in 9th grade. They don't, that's the one year
Yeah.
don't, I didn't
But then
mention
if you
that.
watch when they go to 10th grade, you gain 11 kids.
Right, because we add the kids coming from private schools.
No, but
Or did I mess that up? It was usually in 8th to 9th grade,
But you're adding them from 9th to 10th. You see what I mean? Or am I-
On the projected for next year, or all the way through?
You see what I mean? Yeah. So look at column.
Yeah, I got it.
See it?
I missed the year.
Yeah, it's just,
I got 147 and
Yeah.
147. I added it in 10th grade instead of 9th
Yeah,
grade that year.
yep.
So, yeah,
it's just,
right.
and
It's the
like I
same.
said, I only noticed it because
Yeah.
it's my own kid, so it's
not-
not a big deal, but if you don't fix it, it's
Right.
never gonna get fixed.
One year it'll be off.
Yeah.
We just. I
It's
put
not
it
like
in
the
wrong.
whole budget's ruined or anything like that.
That's the one other thing we do pick up, a lot of the private school kids in the
Yeah.
8th grade, but yeah, so. But yeah,
I
mean,
don't
that's
even know
one
how you
thing.
get that whole thing to even, that
Yeah.
would
If,
blow
you
my
know, it's,
mind.
I guess we didn't mention this page, but, that's the enrollment, look at the sizes of the 9 through 12 and look at the sizes of the K through 4.
No, I was just looking, because
Yeah.
it is very interesting, because you got a couple big classes in there, and then they kind of go away, and then
Yep.
they just kind of go away.
Yep. And the one class is really small and you talk about, and that's the other thing, who knows how COVID's gonna affect things? Because the one year that's really small in there, it's the, I don't know, it's like the 120 class or 129. That goes back, people claim that's due to the economic crisis of the year, and those were the kids that should have been born there and people put off, and, we have less kids. And those that have been around a while, if you remember, we had a tornado effect on, there was less kids there in them couple of years, 19 years after tornado, and then we had a couple of really big classes. So, there's some cyclicality into it.
So Tim, I have to say, this year, I think we both agree that this is one of the most complicated financial years for school districts, between COVID phasing out and
Yeah.
trying to tie all those expenses to all the different funds with all the different rules, and then to have the legislature roll out with the largest change any of us have ever seen in our careers, and then to track all that and try to, bring out your crystal ball and predict some of the future, and then dig into hundreds of pages of documents that we get from the government. That just really want to give you some kudos for all the
Yeah,
work
for
that
sure.
you've done to keep us, between the lines on the highway.
Hopefully we can.
And I know this is your final board meeting, so I don't want to miss the opportunity to thank you for everything that you've done for the district. But certainly, COVID was a big one, but before that was the construction of the high school and referendums, and just really keeping us on solid financial ground. So thank you for everything that you've done for our schools.
Been a good run. We'll be back a little bit later here if we have one more thing.
Oh, yeah. This was the big one, though.
This was the
is
big one,
like-
yeah. This was, I agree, it's just been, and hopefully we've got most of the stuff identified, but it is a budget, it is a moving, it's always a moving target. This year, it's a really moving target, and again, it's enrollment. It's gonna what determine it.
Can I ask, so, Tim, you mentioned you thought the end of this next year, we should be all right. But 25 and 26 may, so when you do your projections, both for revenues and expenditures, and I know, like you've said, that enrollment is the big key on this, but the fact that you mentioned that we're gonna have to watch those 2 years closely and maybe make adjustments as we
Mhm.
go. In your experiences, based on the numbers that you presented today, would you think that there would have to be cuts made in those 2 years?
If enrollment comes in at 125 for the 130 for the kindergarten for this year and 125 for next year, yes. Because all the revenue, if you look at the revenue close on the rollout of 25, The only thing that's really gonna change our revenue is we're gonna get 2% more, which is probably $200,000 to $300,000. We're gonna lose that much in revenue from loss of students. So the revenue's gonna stay. You won't need to do any cuts if you have no increases in expenditures. And, you know, again, how realistic is that? I mean,
Yeah.
that's, if the expenditures increase, that's probably what you need to look at cutting, because the revenue is going to be that 30 million something. It's gonna be pretty flat, again, depending upon enrollment in the 23 actual numbers. And hopefully, the 23 expenditures are running okay from what I can tell. The revenue, again, is always it's kind of a moving target depending upon our final enrollment numbers, because they adjust. But yeah, if we graduate 170, 80 kids and we bring in 130, you're gonna have a lot less revenue you got expenditures. If you come in, you know, for some reason we get a big, I guess the other influx, the other variable is if you can get extra students between kindergarten and 12. You know, and and we've never ever projected any except the non-public kids coming in. You know, if we get an influx of students for some reason, or we get, you know, we did lose a number of students over the COVID period to the non-publics.
Yeah.
If for some reason, or homeschool or wherever other public schools, if they come back, or if we get a sudden increase, you know, we've always gotten to, and we've never really put it in there, 9th grade, since the new school's been built, we have gotten an increase in students in 9th grade, which I don't know if anybody ever's really analyzed it real close. I guess I just always assumed it was because it's such a nice school, and we got a lot of good programs, and, you know, we get a few transfers in from other schools. So if we can get a few of those, you know, every kid's worth $7,000 to $10,000.
And we have school districts around us making some changes too that could, you know, push or pull students as well.
Yeah.
And looking back at the report we looked at, I think it was December or January, where we were celebrating that more students are coming to us from Mankato than going to Mankato. And so hopefully those trends will continue.
And that's one thing that's really turned in my time here, because we used to be negative on that, and I think, you know, the new school probably had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
So.
I'll make a motion to approve the 23-24 budget.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion. We will proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the 2023-2024 budget as it is included in our packet, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. 2023-2024 budget has been approved. Thank you, Tim. Item number 5, consider a resolution to increase community education revenue due to population growth.
Yes, we have an opportunity to increase our revenues for community ed, you know, that fund that was so negative, to get us a few $1,000s more. This particular levy is based on the general population of the school district, where most of our other levies are on students served or our resident students. This is on all residents. So with the change in the census numbers, we can make a change in this, and therefore increases the levy. So the 2020 census figure was 15,412. Reminder, that's the whole school district, not St. Peter. And it increased to 15,976. So that's kind of right on trend with the other census the population data that we've seen, that our overall population is increasing in this area, even though there's fewer school-age students. So anyway, this is a resolution, and you can read it into the record and go from there.
right, so, the resolution certifying the population estimate for the 2023 payable 2024 levy of Independent School District number 508, St. Peter Public Schools. Whereas the Independent School District number 508 has experienced an increase in population from the 2020 census figure of 15,412 to the current census figure of 15,976 as determined by the state demographer. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 508 that the census figure of 15,976 be certified to the state demographer for approval of use in the 2023 payable 2024 revenue calculations.
I move the resolution. Is that what I do? Or make a motion and move the resolution?
Move the resolution.
Is that what I do?
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna do.
And I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So when you say we increase the levy, we're not increasing personal taxes of any individual, we're just increasing the number of people that we're collecting it from.
True.
Yes.
Well,
No.
it would be spread amongst the same number of people, but when we set the levy, we set it at 15,412, which would be X amount of dollars.
Okay.
And now we're saying it's 15,976, so it's actually about $2,500 more, but gets spread.
I mean,
So it does go up, but it's
theoretically, the amount each individual
Pennies.
paying should be the same.
it goes up a little because the amount goes up.
But so the number of people paying.
Right. I
You'd
think
like
they'd
to
be
think
paying
so.
for it anyway.
You'd like to think.
Yeah.
There's more people, not more property. I mean, you know, the levy,
Right.
it gets spread over, there's more people, but the property is the same, so everybody's tax, you know, everybody's taxes may go up 2 cents. I mean, it's spread over the whole $13
Okay.
billion. So it goes up a little bit.
Mhm.
I still stand to move the resolution.
And I
feel
still
comfortable
second.
with it.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, we will proceed to vote. This is a resolution, so we need to go around the table. Mr. Wilkinsgaard?
Aye.
Ms. Dewey?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Gibson? Ms. Martin?
Aye.
Unanimously passes. The resolution has been passed. Next up, consider approval of an increase in activities fees. Mr. Rourke-Cassidy.
Hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Great.
Excuse me, sorry. So one of the things that we had talked about, or had been brought to me about through all the budget talks, was to increase the activities fees. And so I met with Mr. Gronseth and Mrs. Engeldinger a couple of times, coming up with some different options. Brought one option to the Education Committee a couple months ago, which our current fee structure, for those that don't know, is we have 7th through 9th grade as a combined group, and then 10th through 12th grade as a group. What I'm proposing, or we're proposing, is that we take those two and kind of split them up, so we'd have basically a middle school group and a high school group. So if you're in 9th grade, you're paying the same as what the high school fees would be, and then if you're middle school, you're paying those fees regardless of the activity you're in, which is, currently is $45. And so the reason we kind of felt that is a lot of 9th graders are playing like a C squad schedule or on a 7th through 12th program, which has a pretty much a varsity schedule. So you're going to 95% of those contests. And so the fee of only $45 obviously doesn't cover, none of it covers what we're spending, but doesn't really even drop it in the bucket. So what we're proposing is, again, middle school and a high school grouping, and then raising the fee by $25 for each activity. So for middle school, you'd be looking at $70, and that's basically across the board. And then for high school, majority are, $105 currently, which would then bring it up to $130. Some are a little bit more, such as hockey, football, basketball, just because of the length of season, things like that. But the increase across the board would still be $25. The numbers you see that are highlighted, I don't know if they're highlighted on yours, but the fall total is all based on projections of what we had signed up for this 22-23 year. So obviously those are guesstimates, but it kind of gives an idea of what that increase would look like. So, for the fall, for example, the activities fees would be about 44,000, winter 24,000, spring 34,000, then activities, which is your speech, one act play, middle school play, musical, etc., would be about 27,000 for a total of 131. When our current structure, it's about 82,000 that we bring in from activity fees. So those are yeah.
If you could talk about students who are scholarship too.
Yeah. So the current format we have have for a scholarship is basically if a student comes in and asks for a scholarship, they are granted one because obviously we want them to participate. That money is just covered by the school, and then kind of the Premier Partners is a piece of that helps to cover that cost as well. But we don't have a due process really of a vetting process, I guess you should say. We try to the ones that come in and encourage them to give them a free and reduced form to fill out, but that's about the extent of it, just because there's a lot of information from that we aren't allowed to know. So that if a student is asking for one, they are getting one. The numbers that I gave do help reflect that. Like there would still be about that increase because I went off of how many paid for this past year for what we're looking at for our revenue coming in from this 22-23 year. So I do have a list from other schools in the surrounding area. We're still pretty either low or comparable to pretty much all of them. So we were very low compared to most schools in the area. Now we're still on the bottom end of kind of that bracket, but closer to the norm. So if we go with that option, yes.
Do you compare to schools of similar size?
Yeah, so I have reached out to, I've sent it to everybody in our conference, and then, our Mankato's and some that were, bigger, but we're in the same section or same class as them. So numbers from Waseca, New Ulm, TCU, Marshall, East, Jordan, and Fairmont that I have compared to. For most, I think the only one that we are maybe a little bit more than is TCU, but everybody else, maybe middle school a little bit with New Ulm depending on the activity, but everybody else were about the same, if not a little bit lower. Yeah.
And we've heard a number of those districts are going through the same process and
Yep.
likely increasing the cost of their activity fees.
Right, yeah, I'm guessing.
Putting us, again, likely
They did.
behind.
Yeah.
The superintendent group reached out to me to ask what ours were.
Yeah.
And we had just based it on theirs, and they're increasing theirs, so
So we're still low.
So we're still
we'll
low.
still be
Yep.
low right now.
In your recollection, do you know the last time we've made a fee adjustment?
Well, it hasn't been in the last 2 years, so, but I don't think,
Wow.
talking with Ms. Engeldinger, it's not been since she has been in this, in like a principal or even an assistant principal role. So I think the last time people had best guess was about 20 years, if
Yeah, I was gonna
not,
say
if not
it's-
before then, probably. So, obviously with the cost of even just one basketball now, and everything else, it's gone up considerably since the last time it was increased.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I thought I paid $45 for Emily to swim in like
Yeah.
2009, like
Probably,
honestly.
yeah.
So,
So-
So do we have any limits for families as far as the amounts that the family pays?
We do. So this past year, it was basically $250 per season. So total of $750 throughout the entire school year. So this will obviously increase with that, which is a number we would still set. Probably about a 900, I think we had talked about, or somewhere in there. But there is a limit, yes.
Okay.
Yep. You know, the kicker with that is with just how many people have registering and coming through on our systems, families have to notify us of that because we have like an automatic flagger that just says, hey, you only now owe $50 instead of $150. You know, but even with families that have quite a few involved in activities, that number's still, you know, pretty high to get to unless you're in, which some people are in a million things, but yeah. Yeah.
So I understand, for the most part, we're adding additional $25 to activities across the board, with the exception of with a couple of other
Yeah.
more expensive sports.
Yes.
But in this sheet, I'm seeing a couple of the sports had a $5 increase, like the baseball and softball, and likely just a typo, but I want to at least have it caught so we don't have to go back and be like, oh, shoot.
Oh,
Oh,
I must have just assumed they were 105, like most sports, but I think they're,
well, because like track
Okay,
and
yeah.
field was.
Oh,
I see.
yeah.
Good catch, Drew.
It's
20 more
Yeah.
bucks.
just bringing
sorry,
more money.
sorry, baseball families.
Yeah, so I mean, those would obviously, I'd double check what we have paid, I just was
Yeah.
kind of, but.
Yeah.
Was it just those two?
That I saw.
Yeah, I think that's it. 'Cause the rest were 105.
I'm guessing when you would have had somebody put it into the system, they probably would have caught that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we'll have to
No.
go through and rebuild each one for the next year based off the new fee, and we'll increase that or change that based off of what was charged this year.
Yep.
And obviously, the biggest kicker will be, you know, that ninth grade is the biggest change.
Well, I think it was always more confused, I shouldn't say confusing, but I was always like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Every
this is
time.
nice, right? Yeah.
I think
Like,
it-
every time.
I mean,
Yeah, it aligns with
Yeah.
what I think a general expectation would be anyway.
right, because most in ninth
It's
grade are
just
playing a
so
high
weird.
school schedule, whether it's part of a swimming, which is 7-12, or part of basketball. They're still going to, you know, the same games that
Yeah.
varsity is until you get to the end of the year for the most part. So.
Yeah.
I don't,
Thank you,
Yeah,
Shane.
you bet.
So we got that in front of us.
I would make a motion to approve the new fee structure as presented by Mr. Workessie.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion.
We always do it first, don't we? We always discuss first.
Well, you know, it's nice to do it that way.
We will proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the increase in activities, please.
As
Aye.
corrected.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
as
corrected, yeah.
as corrected. Thank you. So in it,
$25 across the board.
in
And-
changing, yeah, $25 increase on each sport,
Yeah.
but particularly the baseball and softball. We
Well, but
adjusted
you've
to
got
read.
the ninth grade, which is far more than $25. Correct. True.
Right.
So I would just say as
As correct.
correct.
As corrected, yep. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Increase in activities fees has been approved. Thank you.
We'll be sure to let the baseball and softball.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm texting Coach Molter and Niemeyer right now.
Sorry, sorry.
Number 7, consider the continuation of a joint agreement with MVED to provide food service.
All right, we have had an ongoing agreement with MVED to provide their food service, and they would like to continue that. So this is really the same contract that we've had in the past, and just extending it for another year.
So there's no increase in the fee.
No, they would pay whatever, the same that we do.
Okay. It's based on what it costs.
Yep.
Okay, I move to approve the continuation of a joint agreement with MVED to provide food service.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? We'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Continuation of the joint agreement with MVED to provide food service has been approved.
Here comes Mr. Regner for his last dance.
Number 8, consider a resolution to approve yearly governmental lease.
We'll be a lot quicker on this one. Remember, we typically do this every year. It started before me. We get a lease or borrow money basically to pay for the one, it started with the one-to-one when the school went to the one-to-one program for the 9th through 12th graders. And we borrow money for that and pay it back in the 4 years while they're here. And then we also borrow money and set up on a 5-year repayment for other electronic type devices. I think it started when the fund balance was really low. I think that was the reason for it. And then we've continued it. We thought about discontinuing it a couple years ago when the fund balance was up. Probably a good thing we continue to do it, and once we got in this cycle because of the fund balance situation. Basically send out requests to the local financial institutions for financing. This year we received quotes back from First National and Hometown. First National Bank was the lower one for this year. Again, we always get pretty good service from the local banks. I always like to prop them, and both First National, Hometown, and Pioneer all have a couple of leases and have helped us out over the years on those things. The rate is up a little bit from last year. Anybody that follows economics, they've raised the prime rate 5 times, so we're at in the 6% this year. We were down in the 2s and 3s previous years. The amount is also down a little bit this year. I want to point out because, and he's not here so I can give him credit for it, Gus Sorbo had been embarrassed otherwise. He got us about $110,000 or $20,000 through a COVID type grant to pay for a lot of the one-to-one devices we bought this last year. So we would, otherwise, if not for that, we'd probably be in that $300,000 range. So, but I guess our recommendation is to set up the lease with First National Bank for the coming year for roughly $204,000.
I move the resolution to approve the yearly governmental lease with First National Bank.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I need to read the resolution.
I think you can probably say as written. Resolution
So we
as
have a
presented.
motion and a second to pass the resolution as written in the board book packet and in your packet in front of you. Any discussion? All right, we will vote. It is a resolution, so we go around the table. Mr. Lopkinsgard?
Aye.
Ms. Stewie?
Aye.
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 We have approved the yearly governmental lease. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Number 9, consider approval of memorandum of understanding between the City of St. Peter Recreation and Leisure and St. Peter Community and Family Education.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to come forward and share about some of the great work that we're doing. This memorandum of understanding is really a definition of a strong partnership that we have with the Recreation Department. It also addresses the services that each of us will provide so that we can maximize our resources and avoid program duplication. As you know, both of our organizations are committed to eliminating barriers to participation, supporting academic achievement, providing positive recreational and social opportunities, and also encouraging leadership. And one of the ways that we do this is by providing the Recreation Department with funds for their Exploration Recreation program. This program is a free program that operates in local parks throughout the summer, provides a great service to kids. We know a lot of students are anxious every week when they have the new activities coming. Last summer's attendance was 1,337 children. And our funds help defray some of the costs that that program has for staffing, activities, and then supplies. The Volunteer in the Park, or the VIP program, as you probably know it, which fosters leadership skills, is another program that our funds help to support. Last summer, there were 37 students who participated, and 3 of those students continued on throughout the school year, volunteering in different capacities. We also provide funds to support after-school youth enrichment programs. This helps reduce some of the participant fees for things like early release day activities, fencing, flag football, traveling volleyball, esports, and babysitter training. And during the last school year, there were 739 students who participated in those programs. It's really great to be able to work with an organization that shares the same guiding principles that we have. And this working document is really a guide that Joey and I use when we make our program decisions. And we find that it's a really valuable and helpful one for us. As you've had a chance to look at the memorandum, are there any questions that you might have? When I look at the level of programming that we get for the dollars that we give, it's really a bargain. If I had to duplicate those programs all on my own, it would cost more. But this partnership is a really solid one, and it provides great things for our community.
That's what I was gonna ask, if there's ever a hope and a dream that community ed would wanna do some of those things, but.
Well, again, we really try not to duplicate the things that are already happening, so it's really nice when you find a partner and you can share those costs and provide that level of programming.
And I think on a side note, it's been the same for a few years now, the cost. So it's not an increase in cost.
And the offerings are absolutely stunning compared to area schools and so on. It's just great for kids in St. Peter can do. Yeah.
I think, we've had some conversation, and in other models that I've worked with, the city pays community ed, or grants community ed, but then we're both spending the same amount. It's just who's paying who to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we weren't paying them, we'd be putting in at least this to do the same, and the city giving us some money. This way, they're putting in the same, but we're giving them the
It's
dollars.
just
So
who's doing the work, or.
right.
Yeah.
So either way it works.
I would move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of St. Peter Rec and Leisure and St. Peter Community and Family Education.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We will proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We've approved the memorandum of understanding between the City of St. Peter Recreation and Leisure and St. Peter Community and Family Education. Thanks,
Thank
Tammy.
Thank you. Mr. Rourke, Cassie gets to come back down.
Yeah. Number 10, consider approval of a swimming cooperative with Nicollet Public Schools.
Round two. I'll sit on this side.
Ooh, mix it up a little.
So in front of you is just the standard high school league form to create a co-op. About, last fall, early winter, Nicollet had reached out about, they had some students that are interested in swimming, and they're actually a student that's homeschooled but lives in the Nicollet district, and so they're interested in having maybe some more students of theirs that have shown interest in swimming, they don't have a team, obviously. So they reached out about joining a co-op, kind of talking through it with them and talking through it with Mr. Gronseth as well, and just what that looks like for us. And our numbers for swimming are projected to be around 25, when it's been anywhere from that to 50 or 60 students at a time. And so it's obviously we have room for that to still be successful and still let everybody have their chance. And so this was just basically a chance to allow students to have an opportunity to participate in a sport that they wanted to, that they don't before, and it doesn't have an impact on coming in and taking spots away from us, with swimming being kind of a timed event, and there's a ton of junior high and JV heats at each meet that we go to, so it doesn't really take anything from our students, just adds more students and give them the opportunity as well. So the form that you see there is just we go through it. Since we would be the host school, where we would still be St. Peter Saints, we wouldn't do like the Minnesota River Bulldogs kind of thing. Since we're would be a much more majority of our students, they would just be in charge of getting their students over here in time for practice and buses and et cetera. And then everything else on our end as far as events and times and busing and coaching all stays the same. So it's really no impact on our current situation for that swimming team. So, with Nicollet, that number could be anywhere from 1 or 2 to a few. Obviously, it's not going to go up a ton just with that school and what they offer in the fall, but they don't know what they're looking like. In 10 years, we're going to have 6 kids that want to swim or 10, but they know they have a couple right now.
So these were our numbers last year? Or this 2, 8, 3, 6, 7, 5?
Yeah.
In section 4, those were our numbers?
Correct. Involved in swimming. Yes.
So
Okay.
after we approve it, this goes to Nicollet.
Yep.
The Nicollet School Board, and then they fill in their information, they approve it, and then it goes to the high school league, and then they have to approve the partnership.
Yep. And then we have to get approval from our region and all that stuff that kind of behind the scenes that we just send a bunch of emails around and go from there. So yeah, those are our current numbers. Obviously trying to find ways to increase those numbers within St. Peter. Well, but it's, just if we can get more involved, that always helps get the word out to increase those numbers overall as well.
I will say that these collaborative partnerships that we have with other districts, when kids participate in them and they get to know their teammates and then they hear about the school and pretty soon they're open enrolling to the schools. It's
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah. And the co-op in general, that's kind of, a soft spot for me being the hockey coach for a while. Like, that's a pretty cool deal to be able to, you get to know just a whole different kind of student body that way by being in those kind of events with people from different schools. So it's kind of a cool ordeal when it doesn't have a huge impact on how things we have currently are going.
Well, and yeah, for Nicollet, their option for these girls is gonna be volleyball or nothing,
I'm guessing they co-op for cross country
Oh,
with
do
maybe
they?
MVL or something, but I'm not
I
sure
don't
if they
even know.
have.
Well, for me, it was volleyball or
Right.
nothing,
Yep.
so.
Not 6 or 5 or 6 like we have in St.
We
Peter.
have a lot of sports in St. Peter, which is super cool, but that's nice.
So.
I assume this was driven by interest, right? Someone must be interested in swimming,
Yes.
and so they're,
Yep.
But who knows, year by year, it could
Right.
be 5, it could be 0.
Right.
But just for process purposes, this co-op exists
Until
we mutually dissolve it.
Correct. Or one can actually
can opt
resolve
out.
it, but so we wouldn't do this every year. So even if next year all of a sudden they don't have any swimmers, like the couple that wanted to try it, didn't like it, and they say I'm going back to volleyball or whatever, this doesn't have to come up again next time they have somebody. So same thing kind of like with our hockey. There'll be years where Cleveland doesn't have any hockey players, but then they're still part of the co-op. So it doesn't change that way unless we're like getting to that point where now we have too many and now we're like, it could be where are we taking 2 buses, adding coaching, and then that's a kind of a financial discussion, then, you dissolve it, but until then it's there.
Yeah, I was wondering what happens in, unlikely, but if Cleveland suddenly has 30 to 50 interested athletes and St. Peter has none or
Yep.
something like that, or it's,
Yeah.
really flipped. Do we just address it at that time?
So when once we get approval, we work with them to kind of create what that co-op agreement would look like. With it similar to what we have with hockey, where you kind of have, here's how much it costs, and you pay your percentage based on how many students participated in that year. So that's most likely the easiest way to go, because then however that ends up, it's pretty, easily shared. If it gets to that point, where it's like a complete flip, I would hope we never get there, but then as all of a sudden it's that's a much bigger discussion, I guess.
Right.
But I know what you mean. Like it's just it kind of have that set in a way that whoever has the most is still on the hook for how that looks. So we're not they're bringing in 20 and we have 10 and we're still paying for everything, kind of thing. So.
Yeah. And they'll be Saints. But,
Yes.
That
Yes.
would be a discussion item if it was like, there are no Saints here.
Right.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
sounds
that
like
would be
there's
a-
no plan, so
Yeah.
that's good.
If we did this Do you think that this might open up interest from some other districts? 'Cause
I mean,
there are
I-
a lot of swimming teams
Yeah.
around, right?
There, I mean, around here, like Le Sueur doesn't have it, TCU has it, you know, Mankato's obviously, and, so it could, you know, always the kicker with it is like the kids and like even the parents might want to do it, but the district also has to be up for paying for it and figuring out how that student's going to get there, and, you know, they're now claiming it as a high school league sport for them, so there's, you know, more than just saying, hey, we're into kind of, but, you know, it potentially could. You know, Cleveland's always, you know, just as close, if not closer, and so, you know, there's always an option there, I guess, but, nobody else has talked about it or reached out, and I believe they maybe have once or twice, you know, in the years past, just kind of gauged interest, and so, yeah.
I move to approve the swimming cooperative with Nicollet Public Schools.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Approve the swimming cooperative with Nicollet Public Schools. Item 11, consider approval of authorizing Megan Gracia to replace Tim Regner as the signer on District 508 accounts.
Yes, last month we added B in case there was some need in transition, and in the meantime, we have hired Megan Gracia as the business manager, and it became official tonight because you just accepted that, like in the consent agenda. And so we've been working with the bank to prepare to remove Tim's name from as a signer at Tim's request, and adding Megan. So,
He wrote a couple big checks to himself.
We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve what am I approving? The authorizing Megan to replace Tim as the signer on all District 508 accounts.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
You're on there
Congrats.
now, Megan.
Congrats on signing things.
You're locked in.
Sign wisely.
Work on that signature.
Item 12, consider second reading of revisions to the policy manual.
Yes, we brought these to you last month as a first reading when we could have brought them as a single reading, but because we brought them as a first reading, they're before you as a second reading. And there aren't any changes that we're putting into those. That makes sense?
And I would move to approve the second reading of the following revisions, or the listed revisions to the policy manual.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Those policies are adopted.
The next item are a single reading due to immaterial changes. So we looked through these. There were no significant changes on policy 404. We didn't have the form attached when the policy had said it should be, so we've attached that form. And then one notation was stricken in 405. Otherwise, there were no changes and no material changes in any of the policy language.
And I would move to accept the single reading, or to approve these policies on a single reading because there were no material changes except for the two noted.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions?
The only thing I would say is the form isn't listed in here
Yeah.
for 404. So we'll still have to add the form.
Yeah. With the addition of the form.
Yeah, it exists, but it needs to be
Put in.
in here.
In there. Okay.
So we're gonna pull out 404 for July then, or?
No, I think we can just,
The form exists. The form exists, let's not put it off.
It's just not in the packet.
That'd be great.
yeah,
But like, I don't know if it's.
just bring it back.
Third time.
One more time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the encore, you
Yeah,
know?
we have
Yeah.
a motion and a
I know
second.
how this works.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Sorry,
Motion
404.
carries.
I tried.
The final action item, consider approval to amend a previously passed resolution of non-renewal of probationary teacher contracts.
Yes, it's a happy note to end on. Well, we've had some more people either retire or resign, move on, accept different positions. And so some of the staff members that were included in the resolution of non-renewal of non-tenured teachers can be brought back. And rather than have an end and a beginning in their files, if we go back and amend the resolution, it's like we didn't take that step and they have an uninterrupted time of employment. It's just cleaner to go back and amend the resolution. So Kent Bass, Stephanie Evans, and Ethan Sindelier have all accepted positions in the district, and so you'll just be seeing them as a transfer memo, transferring into a new position. So Kent Bass is actually in the position that he was being bumped out of
Nice.
because the person who was bumping him had moved on to another district. So he's actually taking back his same position, so you wouldn't see a memo for that because he's just continuing. Stephanie Evans will still be at the middle school, but she will be teaching health instead of math. And Ethan Sindelier is taking a first grade position at South, and you saw a memo on that in the consent agenda today.
Well, math and health are kind of the same, so that works.
Right?
I'm teasing.
So we need a motion to approve the amendment.
Yes, I will
Not
move
another
to,
resolution.
I will move to amend the previously passed resolution regarding the non-renewal of probationary teacher contracts to fit what is attached in our board of education.
I'll second whatever Tim just said.
We have a motion and a second to amend the previously passed resolution. All those in favor signify by saying
Discussion?
discussion.
Do that.
Are you kidding?
Like the reductions were not pleasant and weren't a good time for us, but I'm pleased that we have a little bit of good news for some of those who are most affected. I mean, it's not a clean sweep for everyone, but it's some little good news, so
Well,
I'm happy about it.
So do you want me to say discussion or not say discussion next time? Because you scolded me for saying it before.
Me?
Just say it.
Scolded.
You know,
is a strong
usually we
word.
do have discussion, but then when you say discussion, we usually do have discussion again. So I think it's important to say it
I'll
that
keep
way.
saying.
Yeah, I disagree.
I was just following Rob.
Just kidding. I agree with
So
you.
we have a motion and a second.
You
Further-
said you looked this up
further
in
discussion?
your Robert's rules?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to
Okay.
go.
You have
We
to
are
say
So
discussion.
my only question was, because it was a resolution, can you make a motion to change the resolution?
That
Without making it
That's-
another resolution.
Yeah, that's what I had to look up.
Yeah.
And it's a motion to amend a previously passed resolution, and it is a simple majority of the outcome. So,
So that's why you said it like you did.
but we're missing one person.
kind of seems like a dicey rule.
Oh.
You know what I
boy.
mean?
What?
That you could just go amend a previously.
Pass resolution.
Yeah.
So
We're just
it
trying to
is
do
more
the right thing.
complicated because if it was passed unanimously, so any of you could bring it up. If it were someone who were on the losing side of the vote, then only a person in the prevailing, or on the prevailing side can bring it back. But because it was unanimous, any of you can bring it back.
Okay,
Yeah.
that seems like an appropriate
Okay.
bumper. Yeah.
And if it wasn't a unanimous, then everybody has to be present
Yeah.
to re-vote.
So then we do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Even tougher.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we do not need to do a roll call
Right. No.
because it's a, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
This
We
is
have a motion and a second.
a positive thing.
I'm glad I did my homework.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yes.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of amending a previously passed resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Information items. First up, school board election filing dates.
It is that time of year again that we have to start watching our legal requirements for providing notification to the public. We are at that time that we need to make notification that the school board will have 4 seats included on the ballot in November. The filing date begins on August 4th at 8 a.m. and runs through August 18th at 5 p.m. in the district office. And the filing fee is $2 for these seats. And so legal notice will be provided in the Herald, and it will be posted twice as required before the filing date opens.
But we don't have to take any action.
Nope, that's just informational
Okay.
and to let you know, but also to let the public know too. This serves as one of our legal requirements of notifying the public that it is available. I did notice right before the meeting that the notification was not included in board book, but I think it's in there now.
Thank you.
That's it.
No other informational items. We have reports from a small group? No?
Do I get to come up?
Yeah.
Oh, there's no one else here.
You should have heard the admin meeting today. They're like, "Hey, Jana, you get spotlight."
That's all right. I missed the last meeting and I have to miss the July meeting, so
There you
thought
go.
I better stay. So right now we're actually wrapping up high school credit recovery already. We just have one more week next week. So we had 2 sessions. We had a 1-week, very condensed session. We had 30 students enrolled. We offered just world history and U.S. history during that time. And then the last couple of weeks we've had English 9, English 10, English 11, physics, chemistry, biology. Mr. Kennedy is handling all of the math. And then we have Miss Baki doing geography. So I just want to really recognize their efforts, taking their time in the summer to put together curriculum. They're really individualizing it for each student. Our goal in credit recovery is not to make kids do every single thing again, but to go back and make sure they have all of their gaps met so that they can progress and be successful as they move forward. So they are individualizing learning for everybody and doing a really nice job. So just a shout out to those teachers. And then, like I said, we had 30 session 1 and we have 70 students session 2. And 75% or 3/4 or so are taking 2 classes. So these kids are working really hard at the high school and they're doing a really nice job. So congrats to them for sticking it out and working hard. Rock Bend wrapped up a pretty good year. Many of our seniors went across the stage and received their diploma. And we are just about full at Rock Bend already for next year. We only have 4 seats open, and that is unusual to be sitting like that in June. Kids are typically more last minute with Rock Bend applications, so I'll be interested to see what happens as we head into August. Typically, we get new enrollees to the district that are behind credits. And so hopefully we'll have some space for them, otherwise we'll get our wait list going again. Oshawa Learning Academy at the Hoffman Learning Center is also doing summer school. They've also got 1 week left. And numbers are increasing out there. We are, I think, at 25 right now, 24 right now, so numbers are going up. They've opened another unit for clients, and so we should see those numbers continue to rise. So that's what's happening right now. I know the other principals would tell you all the great things that are happening as they're preparing to start summer school next week. So we'll be wrapping up just as they begin. So that's, thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Gore.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Summer school starts on Monday for our elementary students. And so we have lots of students coming in. I know in the beginning it was a little slow having people sign up. And now we're to the point where like, okay, we probably need to get some more staff in here because we have so many students coming in and participating in summer school, which is wonderful. Janet mentioned that Rock Band is almost full already for next fall. It just speaks to the ongoing conversation that we've had, like we really need to find a suitable space. I have had some conversations about some possibilities, and we'll continue to explore those possibilities until we find a suitable space for them to be in. I wanted to mention Tim Regner again. I know that he quietly exited out the door so he would avoid this. So that's why I got it while he was doing the budget, but really, again, want to commend him for 10 years with the district and all of the support that he's provided. I can tell you as a superintendent transitioning into a district, the business manager is one of those key people who is really sharing a lot of that information and makes it possible for an incoming soup to even function. So I really have appreciated all the time that we've spent together over the past 3 years. I look forward to spending just as much time with Megan in the next 3. And anyway, we are happy to be celebrating him tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. A week from today. Taking him out to lunch and just sharing our appreciation as an admin team for his years of service. So, with that, I will say we have presented you with a lot of information tonight, and there has been a lot of time and effort put in by the entire admin team on the number of items that are before you, and I can tell you that next month holds just as many. So our work is not done for the summer, for sure. We're all closed.
You're on the table.
I don't have anything, thanks.
A reminder to the board that our annual evaluation of Superintendent Gronseth we are in the midst of it. Evaluations are coming back to me by next Thursday, a week from today, and then I'll compile those, and then we will discuss at a future board meeting to go over the evaluation. So if you have any questions, board members, please let me know, or concerns with the form or anything. Mr. Cal?
My only question was, wasn't there a special meeting on the 17th of July at 5? It's down here, but it was
Study session.
study session. Oh, a study.
Study sessions first,
Okay,
yeah.
my mistake.
No, that's okay.
That's it.
Okay. Mr. Dixon?
None for me.
Ms. Martins?
None for me.
All right. We have some upcoming meetings, policy committees on next Wednesday at 4 in the district office, education committee the Tuesday, July 11th at 1 p.m., Business Committee, Wednesday, July 12th at 4 p.m. And then, as Mr. Cow pointed out, Monday, July 17th, we have the Marathon Study Session at 5 p.m. in the Traverse de Sioux Room, followed by our regular board meeting at 6:30 p.m. right here in the Governor's Room.
Just to note, we will provide you with a light dinner between your meetings that day, if you so wish us to do.
All right. Did I miss any meetings? Got them all. Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn this fabulous meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.